Welcome back to Gen Wars, the combative and sometimes agreeable podcast between the Gen Xers and the Millennials.
Hey, we're upgraded.
Face. Look at that face. Today we're going to be breaking down the X-Men episode 4, X-Men 97 episode 4, not the original, the new one. And we're both a fan of structure. And so we're going to be breaking these down into 5 specific categories that we've rounded out that makes this a bit easier to talk about. Nostalgia bias, production value, spirit and intent, and emotional value, rewatchability, and overall / predictions. Steven, let's get into it. Hit him with some nostalgia, or the nostalgia category.
Yes. So it was interesting that this was like a 2-parter episode. They hadn't done that prior, right? Yeah, okay. I wasn't tripping when I was watching through it.
No, this was the first 2-parter, or at least in this series anyways.
Yeah. So I liked definitely the first section was very nostalgia bait as far as the Montendo. Oh, wait. There is spoilers ahead. You have to be wary of all things that are spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode, go ahead and watch it however you watch it. Continuing on, the Montendo ported it into a video game for, I forget his name, but the guy that lives off of fandom.
Mojo,
thank you. Yeah, because I was like, oh, watch Mojo. That's funny. I do laugh. I know that's not the reference that way. It might be a different direction. Anyway, just getting ported into the game console, and I thought it was funny that they're like, I'm not going to an arcade. And I like the arcade, but I guess we could play home console, because this was the time where the arcades were kind of dying off, and then home consoles were coming into play, and it looked like a Genesis. Super Nintendo had a baby.
It did look like a Genesis for sure.
Yeah,
I think I wrote that down. I was like, oh, that looks just like a Genesis. They kind of shaped it all that weird controller shape that they had.
Yeah, it looked like a Genesis controller, but the top profile was very much a Genesis, and then the front profile was like a Super Nintendo, so I thought that was kind of quirky, and then they called it a Nintendo, and then...
Was there ever an X-Men game that was on Genesis?
Yes. Yeah, I think they ported over the arcade X-Men game, which I actually, I have a arcade set up. Which has a whole bunch of games on it. Shout out to CoinOps. And I booted up the X-Men game to look at it, because I thought the pixel art style of the game looked a little bit too much like Scott Pilgrim and not like the original arcade game. So I was like, I don't think that's how the Sega game looked either. So I think that's my one nitpick that I'm going to have this episode, as far as the nostalgia bait and what they were trying to do, was the sprite style for some of the street fighting scenes didn't look enough like the X-Men arcade game, and looked a little bit too much like the Scott Pilgrim video game, which confused me, but maybe they had reason for it.
I mean, it looked good. It looked great, but it was not that exact sprite look and feel that it was.
Yeah.
It didn't translate quite 1-to-1. But other than that, it was. I thought they still did a good job with it. They did drop a lot of candy, in nostalgia candy in this one. Even in the opening intro, we had X Factor stuff with Havoc and Polaris, Emma Frost, and Hellfire Club, which I'm assuming if they're plunking some of those things in, we might get some of those down the road, which I'm okay with. I could almost see this even spinning off into an X Factor something or other at some point in time, like they might be doing with the New Mutants, because when Forge and Storm were together later in the other half of the episode, they showed him with X-Force, pinned on his wall, which I thought was really cool. When X Factor, when X Factor came around, I started following that a bunch. So I was very excited to see that. I kind of stopped reading around that time. I did get a sprinkling of Havoc, Polaris, that team with Multiple Man and everything. but I didn't read a ton of those books. But I was a big X Factor fan.
Right. So I'm sure you loved the the X-Men movie with the original Ryan Reynolds Deadpool.
That's a
they
movie
had Will
that
I Am in it
should,
and stuff.
That's a movie that we probably should tackle on Gen Wars at some point.
Keep an eye out for that.
You, that was a rough one.
But they had a lot of X Factor homages in there. Loose utilization of that IP. I truly think that this show is a love letter to the fans with a promise of more, and I'm here for that. I like more content when it's good, and I haven't been affronted yet.
Okay. Well, this would move into our next section of production value then. Slightly affronted by this episode, and I don't mean that in any, like, you've done me wrong. More so in this seemed like a filler episode to me. This seems like something I'm going to talk about in the predictions, but they have a bigger story. They wanted to sprinkle in the Storm and Forge thing, and didn't know how to... It was too big for over there, so we're going to give you a little bit here, and instead of intercutting it with this other story, they were just like, here's the Jubilee thing, here's the Storm thing, and that's the episode. It felt very disjointed. All of a sudden, we hard shifted tonally to another story altogether. This episode altogether was 27 minutes. This episode was 27 minutes long in total, where every other one has been 30. The Jubilee section was 15 minutes. The Storm and Forge thing was 8 minutes long. The opening was 2 minutes long, and then whatever the remaining 3 minutes for credits. So they're working with a standard issue cartoon episode here, but it felt very disjointed. If they'd maybe intercut these two things where we feel that there's time elapsing when we get to the Storm and Forge, like, I love you moment, huh? That was weird and out of place, and for 6 minutes to all of a sudden drop that bomb, nope.
I disagree. Here's the combative part of this conversation.
Okay, here we go. Good,
wrong.
Let's go.
Okay, so this is the romance episode. So this is culling out all the will they, won't they for the entire season, which I'm here for.
Okay.
When we're trying to really package this up, it feels like they're trying to tell a tight, overarching story. So you start out the scene with like the love triangle set up with Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit, like just like on the nose, like get wrecked, Gambit. Like you're done. So
oh man, yeah,
figure it out, buddy.
His place hard.
Oh man, absolutely, just like hard blocked. So they're addressing that, and then they go into the kind of like implied romance, because we go back to the previous episode where Jubilee and Sunspot, right? Yeah, Sunspot are like watching a scary movie together late at night. He's
not Sunspot by name yet.
Right.
Again,
he's Sunspot.
Yes.
God damn it.
Absolutely.
Like implied romance there, but now they're like, okay, now it's like come full circle. And then again, we jump to the other love setup, which was the Forge and Storm one. They kind of like, I'll give you that they glazed over it, but why not? Yeah. Just kind of like they're spending a lot of time together. He is going on his quote unquote redemption arc, but falling in love with his projects, falling in love with his work, more or less. I think that's a little bit objectifying, and probably not the intent of the writing, but you know, it's there battling demons and literally, like I like that. It's very thematically cohesive. So I'll have to disagree that it's disjointed in that fact, but it's just they decided to tackle all of the romance narratives out the gate, so we can run with that throughout the rest of the season. And I thought it was really good, especially when you're telling like a story that everything's happening at the same time. Big thumbs up. I'm a fan of that kind of narrative style personally, so I might be a little bit biased in that, but I wasn't offended by it at all.
So as an editor, as somebody who tells that story, to that hard jumping from this fantastic 8-bit world of this video game craziness in Mojo world, they're running for their lives, trying to fight the Magneto and all the other things that Mojo is throwing at them, to all of a sudden being out in the middle of the wilderness, and it's just these complete juxtapositions was a hard jump. When you do things like that to intercut them, if you intercut them, they play better. That time elapsed that you're physically seeing in 8 minutes worth of time, cut throughout a 23-minute episode, I think would have played better, and you could have feigned not feigned the understanding, or yes, feigned the understanding that time has elapsed when he then drops that ultimate "I love you" bomb, and you're like, okay, at least they've spent a lot of time together. 8 minutes seems like it was they like had dinner, went for a ride, came back downstairs, showed her a thing, and he's like, "I love you," and you're like, wait a minute, you just met her in a bar 2 seconds ago, and now she's back at your crib, and you're dropping the love bomb on her, and then also, oh, by the way, I did a bunch of stuff that is gonna be I made a bunch of tech to wrangle mutants. You're like, whoa, that's a lot. Pump the brakes, buddy.
So, did the love you happen? Or is that part of the demon torture? Because then it can feed on misery. Because it can already show that it can create illusions and... So maybe here's the value. Like, it was so shocking. Like, it's so fast and so fast paced, because it sounds like we're going to spend a lot of it on the next episode. So maybe
we're
a
not
lot
there
of
yet,
your
but that was my prediction for the next episode.
Yeah.
But that's for a couple moments.
We'll save that for the later section. But I will say, like, the romance checked for me upon first watching. Maybe I need to spend more time with the episode. But, like, it made sense. I like the juxtaposition, like, heavily technology, like, youth, and, like, the world
and
seems new and fresh. And then you did have, like, Jubilee facing her older self. Like, what does wisdom and experience look like? Like, what can I become? And then you jump into someone like Storm and Forge, who has a past, who are older and have experience, and what does their romance and love look like? So I think it was a little bit smoother than you're giving it credit for.
Maybe I need to rewatch it again. It just felt this would be the book that I bought, because would have bought every issue. I would have read it through once, and I would have put it down and never picked it up again. I would have been like, that's cool, out in the box. You know, that's where I would have sat with this if this was an actual, paperback book. I would have read it through once and been like, yeah, thanks. We had damn good, banger of an episode, then this one. And I don't know how I feel about this one yet. Maybe, again, it requires me a rewatch, because it was fun. The first 15 was fun and exciting. Felt like I could have spent a little more time in Mojo World and in the Nintendo area and played in that world for the full 23 minutes. But they didn't. They let that one. They were just like, yeah, we'll end it here. It went by quick. There was also some stuff in there I wish they would have capitalized on, as some of the Magneto phrases and stuff that when you actually fight Magneto in the arcade game that he drops, and that are, I guess, for fans of that game, are the famous ones. So they they did a couple, but there was a couple more that they missed. But that's my nitpick on that.
True. Kind of moving into the spirit of the episode.
Yeah.
You said that this was a filler. It felt almost like a filler episode, which, if we were having a longer season or whatever, I would give you that. Mm-hmm. I would challenge you to say, like, would you have wanted the Jubilee section and the Storm section to be their own episodes? Was there enough content in there to deem 30 minutes spent on that arc each?
I think if given the episode length, if we removed the Storm part, gave 8 more minutes to at least even that part of, like, oh no, Mojo might be a problem. We need to be concerned about Mojo with the greater team after the fact, after they escaped. Maybe. I think I could have enjoyed it more if it was each their single episode, that this is a fun, fantastical world of 8-bit, a video game romp, and then maybe maybe some setup for something later, or just, hey, keep an eye out. There's some other bad guys on the horizon. Just like when Magneto sat down and was like, we need to be prepared. We can't go play video games because we need to be prepared just in case Sinister pops his head back up again. That was a nice little foreshadow, because he's coming back for sure, even though he got wrecked last time around. But
and maybe my like addressing that or challenging you a little bit more is like, what if the Storm section was even shorter? What if like you had the implied like, hey, there's been a lot of time passed, like this would be where I would change her hairstyle to show that their time has passed, that she has been with Forge, and they're a little bit more affectionate towards one another, and they're a little bit more showing like even just a line like, this is the 14th time we've put me in this tube, I can't stand it anymore, I can't handle being disappointed more, like even just like crunch it down even shorter and left it on that cliffhanger, like a true blue cliffhanger. Is it any different? I don't think so. So I think like you're getting extra content, if anything.
I guess it's and that's where I think you say it's extra content, but I think that they had too much to put in a full episode, a full 30-minute of Forge and Storm. They had 40 minutes, let's say, and they went, well, we need to keep these at 30, cut that 8, put this over here. What do we put with this? Oh, it's Jubilee's birthday, and have them. That's where I felt like it was just, hey, we need something to make a 30-minute episode. Let's have a 15-minute jubilation party
gotcha.
in the Mojo verse, in the Nintendo thing. Like, that's, again, I will, next section, I'll rewatch it again. Will I rewatch it often? No, I will not, most likely, unless some magical thing comes to light and I realize that I'm so far off base here. But I don't think that's going to be the case.
Do you know what's not off base?
Not a bad episode. It has the pieces separately, I think, are good. They're fun. They have their moments. They're setting up for other things, but I think to mash together, it was weird and just kind of just literally just slammed together. Here, this, and then we got an episode.
Agree to disagree.
Just my.
But we can all agree that the Funky.store has great merch, especially nostalgia merch, based on definitely not a Nintendo property. That would be weird and convenient for this episode. You can pick that up at Funky.store after you like and subscribe to Nick's channel, Fire Hazard 508 Creations, and my channel, Funky Games, because it makes the channel stronger, and we can do more projects like this, and we can make more merch that you can buy, and then we can do more stuff, and it's a great cycle. You can do both, just like we got 2 episodes out of 1 episode here in X-Men episode 4.
Okay.
I think this one has a ton of Easter eggs in it. I'm sure there's many a YouTube channel covering every little nook and cranny of the Easter eggs of it. I think it's a joy. But I do think it's a pretty good segue episode. I think like it just really addresses the will they, won't they, or kind of put like the character dynamics on display. It really does feel
maybe that's what I'm thinking. It's more so. Maybe instead of a filler episode, it's a segue episode. I guess that's kind of one and the same. Yeah. But that's where I'm feeling that this lies.
Yeah, I think doing a half and half episode, it has utilitarian purposes. I think you could stretch love triangle narrative. You could stretch the will they, won't they. You can stretch the I'm trying to fix myself and fix you narrative the entire show. You can run that the entire time. I think it's tired. I don't think it's necessary, given the fast pace that they're doing. So I think it's just really surgical in execution. I will say it was kind of yucky that they're like, she's 18 now, so this is okay. A little weird on that. That's just me, though. You could have just said it was her birthday. whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hollywood, baby. They've got some explaining to do. But then also the Forge and Storm, like, implied romance, but also kind of gives Forge a driving force to pursue, but also kind of it did a lot of work in a really compact storyline that was still fun and energetic, but also solemn and like I think like Storm's initial, and they put it in the previously on X-Men where Storm lost her powers. That was a very, very good emotional conveying by the voice actor and the animators in that. And I think they did it again here. So it's really good just showing the emotional, like, driving force of Storm. Like, she's got a ton going on, obviously. And now we have a personal demon. Like, it's almost too on the nose for my liking, but I like it's really good.
Were we going with that's personal demon? Or is that
I'm sure it's a character that's
I don't
known.
know.
I didn't recognize
that's beyond me. Yeah.
But the fact that she acknowledged the owl, I think there was some sound bites of the owl in the middle of her section, and then it appeared.
Okay.
So this owl's been following her for X amount of time that she's been with Forge. So growing stronger off of her misery. So it's either like a personal demon of her manifestation or a demon that's latched onto her personal struggle. So I'll use that phraseology.
Okay. Well, that goes into our overall predictions then, or overall end predictions, is that you think this is some sort of demon, or whatever that is. Yeah, I don't recall ever some sort of owl character, but that there might be, and it's not something that I know of.
Future editor Nick is probably put it down in the lower thirds for you to check out, or you can tell us in the comments too.
Or comment below and tell us what it is.
Exactly.
So I have to do less work.
We appreciate you, all of those who comment and tell us we're right or wrong, specifically when we're right, because I like that. Going into predictions, I think there's full episode of battling demons in it's a good construct because, like, let's hypothetically say it's a mutant just rationalizing themselves as a demon.
That's what I'm thinking it is.
Sure. So it's real. It's not in her head. It's not just like some nightmare simulation thing. She is going to combat this, and probably Forge is going to have to combat it with his own demons. I thought it was interesting that the demon bit him, and it showed some kind of like infection of some sorts into his body.
Oh, right, it did. Yeah, like it started stretching over
that was a pretty intentional scene to be throwaway. So I think there's going to be a lot of just like healing. So it might be the arc that she gets her powers back and everything is just like she's gone through her turmoils. And in that sense, Forge has as well. So good character developments across two characters that are now intrinsically tied in their arcs. I think that's the episode.
Definitely think there will be a full episode of that, and I think that's where my feelings were like, hey, we're setting up for this next episode is going to be this whole whatever this owl thing is, coming after them and trying to battle that to get back her powers, which ultimately I'm assuming was going to land in that. One of the things that I did notice when she was standing on the hilltop there when they rode their horses out is that you had said that you weren't a fan of them changing her hairstyle, but yet she's standing there with her new hairstyle, and it is blowing and flopping in the wind.
They did it.
Why would?
It's just in the moments where, like, it's never down. Like, I don't know the hair physics. Like, I don't want to take
really
two
good.
nitpicks per episode. But it's like when she wakes up in the morning, is that how it is? Like, it's just doing its thing.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
okay,
it's
cool.
Right up there.
They do a good job with it. I see why they did it. I'm still maintaining that I liked the OG style. You can call me a hater.
Yeah, that 80s hairstyle definitely worked well.
It was more fun, in my opinion. I'm sure it was miserable on the animators, and so they can be selective in how they animate it now. So I'll give it to them.
One last thing before we wrap this up, though.
Yeah.
I was right. I was right about the changing of the animation style. I watched a whole video where they interviewed the original animators of the show, and excuse me, they said it was a nightmare to animate the way that they did, because they were trying to rip the characters and their look and how they're drawn straight from the comic book and put it on the screen for the original animated series. And then the new artist that came in to helm this project simplified them down to make the animation style easier to animate and faster and all of that, which is absolutely great. But I knew that there was something that they had to modify from the original style, because they went hard on the original show.
Yeah.
And these animators talked about how rough of a job it was to have to hand draw these ridiculous frames of these characters for a 23-minute episode in the 90s.
On a budget. On a Fox budget.
On a budget. Yeah.
I have come to terms with making it a feasible animation to do, changing silhouettes, because if you look at Rogue, Magneto, and Storm's silhouette going with Storm's original style, if you just made them a black monotone silhouette on a white background, they look pretty similar. You might have an issue telling them apart, but now you do the same thing. They are all very distinct. So that's really important in character design, especially when you have an ensemble of this size, and it's only going to fluctuate in size as we're seeing characters come off and on. Bishop is not in the picture right now, but we got Forge, and it's just there's a lot going on. I'm assuming Cable will make an appearance, so you definitely want distinct silhouettes for your characters, easily recognizable, especially because we're doing more where they're in casual clothes, they're in different scenes, whereas sometimes when a simplified style is in play, it's hard to make everybody distinct.
I'm having a lot less of a hard time with the animation style now that we're 4 episodes in. It's I guess it was the abrupt jump from what I remember the original style to be to the new style, and I have nary a problem with it now, so I'm okay with that. We did see Bobby Drake in the opening credits. It had Polaris holding Havoc, and then it pushed into Forge's face. Bobby Drake was standing there, and I was like, "Come on,
the
Bobby,
model's there.
Go.
They can put him on screen. He can be there."
Exactly. They drew him. Get him up there. So maybe we'll see some Iceman at some point.
I'm here for it. Every appearance that we can get, but wishing a long running series because it's the sauce. Even with a filler episode, I think it accomplished a lot.
All right. Well, is there anything that you'd like to tackle before we get out of here?
No, I think we've tackled what we needed to tackle. I think it was a concise episode. I really enjoyed the episode. I wish there was more to hate on. I'm a known professional hater of all things that people like. So it's pretty refreshing to see an IP be brought on to streaming in this fashion. So it's okay. I'll wait in the wings for my moment to strike, to be the combative millennial that hates all reboots and things brought back from the dead. So, but right now I can't. So kudos to the team that's worked on this show.
Yeah, no, they've done a really good job. All right, you want to round them out and send us off?
Make sure you like and subscribe. Nick, Fire Hazard 508 Creations, making playthings into display things. Lots of great content on the channel that you got to check out. And me, Steven Ireland, over at Funky Games. We play through quintessential video games in the Poses series, where when we are done, we will no longer be video game posers, and we will have the whole histogram of video game knowledge under our belt. So appreciate you going over there and checking us out. And the Funky Store has great things for you to pick up. Great gifts. It was Jubilee's birthday. I bet she would have wanted some funky merch from the Funky Store. So you got to honor that and check out the site, and we appreciate you.
She would have rocked that nostalgia t-shirt for sure.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks again for joining us on Gen Wars. Stay tuned for episode 5 next week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.